Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hi, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm a makeup artist and medical esthetician based in Toronto, Canada. And here on my YouTube channel, I like to make makeup as easy as I can for the everyday consumer like you and me. So if that sounds interesting, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and let's jump right into the video. Today, I have got some new products, some pre-existing products that you can find at Sephora that I wanted to talk about and try out together for the first time on camera. So I'm going to do a two-step priming kind of routine for my lips. I'm going to be starting off with the Algenist Lip Collagen. Since that serum alone is not the most hydrating, I like to follow up with the LANEIGE Lip Sleeping Mask. This is just the original berry flavor. On my channel, I feel like I kind of create the same looks over and over and over, and I want to kind of get out of the box, see what I can do. We are going to go a little bit more bold on the eye today, so I'm going to start with eyes, and I'm going to be using this mini Estee Lauder double wear pencil in Onyx. I'm going to start by smudging this along my upper lash line. You don't want it to be too perfect because now we're going to go in with a brush and we are going to smudge it out. I blended out with a Refy number 12 brush, the Armani eye tint in number 24 Smoke. So with that shade, you just want to take it from right over where you smudge that liner to just below your socket line, and take a brush. This is the Refy number 32, and I'm going to smooth over that. This is quite a sheer color, so you might need to build it. Again, I'm going to go back in with that Estee Lauder liner, this time really making sure you are right in the roots of the lashes, because you need, for this type of look, you really want a dark, kind of smudgy base. The Armani eye tint in Smoke. When I'm blending out the Armani eye tint, I like to start towards the top and work my way down. Right when I get to that seam of where the liner meets the shadow, I'm gonna almost pat over to kind of stipple those colors together, and then just give it a quick pat over. That is gonna be our base for the upper eye. I'm gonna be using the Givenchy eyeshadow palette, and this is the limited edition one for holiday 2021. Really beautiful kind of shimmery colors, and I'm gonna start by using the little kind of double-ended applicator that comes in the compact, and I'm gonna start with the flat side. So I wanna start with that matte dark brown in the top left-hand corner to kind of stamp over that black eyeliner that we applied. And then I'm going to take a Refy number 15 brush and I'm going to blend right over top of that. So now I'm going to use the other side of the applicator that came with the palette, and I'm going to go into that kind of shimmery green color on the top right hand side of the palette. I'm going to load up the side of the round blending side of the brush, and I'm going to pat this right over my eyelid. And I'm going to stop it just before I get to my socket line. I want to make sure I'm going right over that dark brown shade that we applied, because that's almost like a base color. We're creating a gradation of depth on the eyes. So now I'm just going to use the point of that, start blending that shade and softening it. Refy number 15 brush, buff and blend on the perimeter of the upper lid. If you're following along at home and recreating this, or you're looking at me right now and you're like, what is this hot mess? A lot of times with these smoky eyes, we normally do the eyes first because there can be fall down, you can mess up. When you're working with dark colors, it's easy to mess up. So do your eyes first. If there's gonna be fall down, let it happen. Then we can go through, clean up our shape, make any corrections. And also another thing with smoky eyes, it's gonna look pretty bad before you get to the end of the product. It's one of those things you have to keep working through. Build up that foundation, put those layers on, and then you'll get a really beautiful effect at the end. So make it through the ugly phase and then you'll get a really beautiful look. Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzer and a Refy number 27 brush. I'm going to work this through my crease to start kind of feathering it into my skin tone. So I'm going to use this to further soften it, but also create more of that gradient that I'm looking for. Here is where you can either decide if you want to take it round or you want to pull it out and make it a little bit more angular. I want something that is almost right in between round and angular. So I still want to have that height here to round it out, but then I want to pull it out a little bit more. That way I'm getting that kind of lift to my outer eye that I like. Keep going back and forth and keep looking straight ahead in the mirror and step back, because when you're up close, your perception's gonna be one thing, but when you step back, you can see the bigger picture. So then work on just doing a little bit of blending, pulling out the color where I need to make sure I'm keeping balance and symmetry in the look. I'm keeping my grip on the brush fairly low and fairly light. If I have too much pressure, I'm gonna drag the brush. If I keep it more light and kind of feathery, I can further manipulate these shadows a little bit. I wanna pick up this gold in the top middle, drag it right down the middle, and then I'm gonna use my finger just to pat over that. I'm gonna try it just with my finger. If you have anything to clean up, you can take a small cotton bud. I'm gonna use a little bit of Bioderma. Step back, look at your shade, clean up anything under your eye. When you get to this outside corner, place it right there at the corner of your lower lash line, twist and glide out, and you can clean up that outside shape. So once you do that, if you still have a little bit under your eyes, don't worry about it too much, because we are gonna move on and we are gonna work on our lower lash line. So depending on how much intensity you want around the overall eye is depending on how far you're gonna take the pencil. And so for me, since my eyes are smaller, I don't want a ton of intensity under. So I'm gonna take my black pencil, roughly kind of sketch out a little frame on the outer third of my eye. My reference number 12. So once I start blending out that pencil, I'm gonna drag that pencil to the halfway point of my lower lash line. So that way, half of my lower lash line is now covered with the shadow. Mix together the kind of all over shimmery, greeny gold color that we applied on the lid. I'm gonna mix it with the second shade on the bottom left, which is more of like a copper gold. And I am gonna run this all the way along my lower lash line. And when I get to this outside corner, I'm just going to softly connect. Doing this, we're almost gonna create a mixture of the two shades we used on the top while getting to add one of the other colors. I'm gonna pick up that pale kind of rosy gold, and I'm gonna kind of stamp this on the inner V of my eye to highlight. I'm gonna go into that pale pinky middle shade, and I wanna concentrate this right at the very kind of center of the inner eye. And that's just gonna give a really kind of nice pop to the eye. And then once we get our powders on, we'll go through and kind of smoke out that lower lash line a little bit more so it kind of blends into the base. For complexion, I'm gonna be using the new Saie Slip Tint. I have the shade 1, which is fair to light with pink undertones. So I'm gonna take a small amount on my finger and kind of dot it around and see how it blends like that. Here is that little bit I applied to my finger, blended out on this half of my face. So with, without. I'm gonna take a little bit more and see if I can't build this up just a little bit. So if you're someone like me who gets watery eyes and your eye starts watering when you're doing a look like this, I like to keep a little tissue, fold it, press under and look up, and then kind of breathe in through your nose. That will kind of help the wateriness kind of temporarily go away. If you get a little bit of patchiness like that, it's okay. We can go through and patch it up, but let's finish off with our base. So I'm gonna do my base on the other half of my face. Now I'm gonna use one of the IT brushes for Ulta. This is their number 110 buffing foundation. I'm gonna use this to smooth over the complexion, just to make sure nothing is sitting on top of the skin. I'm gonna go back in with my little Refy number 12, no additional product, and I'm just gonna use that to patch up under my eye. Eyes had some time to stop watering. So here's the foundation after it's been buffed out. I'm gonna take a tiny amount on my brush, and I'm just going to lightly dot over and tap over to see if I can't get a tiny bit more coverage. So here is roughly 1.5 pump of this Saie Slip Tint all over my skin. Tiny little bit goes a long ways, and I'll come in closer so you can check it out. I would say this is maybe a light medium coverage level. It's a tinted moisturizer. You're not gonna get a ton of coverage. It feels like freshly moisturized skin. Let's grab my little handy dandy unforgiving mirror. It doesn't look like makeup on the skin. It's a very beautiful product. For me, this is gonna be something that's just nice and easy to throw on with your fingers when you want a little bit bit of something, but you don't want to do a full makeup. I like pairing things like this sheer tinted moisturizer with a more intense eye because it keeps it a little bit more fresh. Because I feel like when you have a very full-on foundation base, then you do a full-on eye, it can just become too much, a little dated. This keeps it just more fresh, more fun, more kind of youthful and playful. So I have a little deluxe sample of this Saie liquid highlighter in the shade Star Glow. Before I do my concealer, I'm gonna apply this to the high points of my cheek. The texture of this is very similar feeling to the slip tint. It has a nice kind of emollients to it. It feels more like a skincare product versus a makeup product. Nice, and it didn't disturb the base at all. So on the back of my hand, I'm gonna take maybe a quarter of a pump of the Saie slip tint, and then I'm gonna take my Too Faced Born This Way multi-sculpting concealer in the shade Snow, and I'm just gonna place a little dot next to the slip tint. So then I have an IT Cosmetics Heavenly Skin 2-in-1 Tap and Smooth brush. So I'm going to mix the slip tint with the Born This Way concealer. And then I stay below the eyeshadow. I'm just going to tap that over, let it set for a moment. Go back in with that buffing foundation brush. I'm going to swirl into whatever is left on the back of my hand, and I'm going to bounce it over the concealer foundation mix we just applied. And by kind of pressing it into the skin, it's going to allow you to keep the product where you placed it. I'm going to use the same brush just to tap under the eyes. And then I also like to take it and tap it just around the perimeter of the shadow. It'll help clean it up a little bit if you got a little out of lines. Those mixed really, really well together. I had a feeling that the slip tint was going to be a little bit more emollient than products I normally go for. The Too Faced Born This Way concealer is something I find really dry, really heavy. So I was very curious to see what would happen if I mixed the two together. So they help to give each other more of a medium coverage. I feel like the emollients of the slip tint mixed with the kind of drier texture of this Born This Way concealer, really nice mix. Now, we'll have to see how they wear because I feel like they look really nice right now. So now I'm going to use the new Refy number 30 brush and the LYS pressed powder and translucent, and I'm just going to use this to set the face. Since this does have more of like a balmy kind of skincare texture, it is going to be a little bit more sticky than some other bases. So if you're going to use powder products on top, I definitely suggest setting it so things don't stick unevenly. We are going to move on to highlighting, and I am going to use the Givenchy Prisme Libre highlighter, and this is in the shade number 10 Organza Or. So it has a little puff like the powder does. I am just going to tap some into the lid. I'm going to use a Refy number 18 brush to swirl into the powder, and then I'm going to use it to buff right on the top of the cheekbone. I'm going to pull this right into the brow bone. So there it is, with highlight versus without. If you're someone who has a lighter skin tone than I do, you might find this highlight a little dark. I find it very, very pretty, and that touch of gold just makes it really kind of pop against the skin tone. So that is the new Holiday 2021 Givenchy Prisme Libre highlight in the shade 10 Organza Or. So I'm going to continue with the Refy number 30 brush. I'm going to go into that Too Faced Chocolate Soleil, and I want to use a brush like this because it's very, very light. Go further back towards the cheek. So I'm using it in a slight kind of sculptural placement, and that's going to help kind of frame the eyes. With that bronzer being a little too dark for my skin tone, I'm going to now go into the Buxom Wonderlust Primer Infused Blush in the shade Seychelles, which is a beautiful kind of rosy, bronzy color. I'm going to continue with the Refy number 30 brush, and now I'm going to use this to go through, kind of start on the back of the cheek, bring it forward. This is going to almost act like my blush bronzer hybrid, but once again, I'm keeping it more towards mid-cheek back, focusing on that more sculptural kind of angular framing. Now I'm going to go into the Clinique Cheek Pop blush in the shade Nude Pop. I like using natural hair brushes with these Clinique powder blushes because they're more of like a baked chalet texture, and they can be a little hard pressed. So using a natural hair brush that has a cuticle, which is a little bit rougher compared to a synthetic brush, makes it a little bit easier to pick up. And I'm going to concentrate this color on the front of my cheek, slightly higher on the cheek, and blend it back into the bronzer. My Refy number 12 brush, no additional product, and I'm going to go through and give my under eye another little smooth out. Too Faced Chocolate Soleil bronzer, and then a Refy number 27. Go right on the edge of that lower shadow, and we are just going to buff back and forth and then connect to the upper lash line and crease. And here's where we want to take time. Make sure you're holding your brush lightly. Here is where we are connecting our upper and lower lash line. So you want to make sure it's going in the angle that you want it to go in. Step back, check for symmetry, move on, and go back and forth if you need to. So I'm now going to take the tip of that flat side of the applicator that came with the palette, and I'm going to use it to press into this kind of warm copper pink color. And I'm going to use this to almost do a smudgy liner in the center of my lower lash line. Go back in with your previous brush, give it another softening. So for brows, I'm gonna start with the Refy Beauty Brow Gel, and I'm just gonna use this to brush my brows up and out. This is a product I bought as soon as it launched here at Sephora Canada, and can't quite figure out if I like it or not, because I find you have to apply it in just the right way or it can go really bad really quickly. What I like to do is apply the gel to one brow, apply it to the other side, then use the applicator that comes with, use the comb side, comb your brows right where you want them to be, and then use the brush side to make sure they're pushed into place. Now give the brows a moment to set because they need to dry down before you go with anything else. And then I'm gonna use my Laura Mercier lip pencil in the shade Baby Lips to kind of line and fill in my entire lip. So I wanted to make sure I was lined and completely filled in because that is quite a warm lip tone, and I want some warmth to balance out with the eyes because everything else in the face is quite warm, but I don't love warm lip colors on myself. So I'm gonna now go in with the Tom Ford lipstick in the shade Indian Rose, and I'm gonna use this to create a stain on the lips. So now I'm gonna go in with a Dior Stellar Shine Gloss. This is in the shade Dior Orama. I'm gonna let this lip hang out here for just a moment. I might change it. I probably will change it. I'm gonna go ahead and give my skin a little mist with the Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Airbrush Setting Spray. So I bought the entire little trio of brow products I had, which also came with the brow pomade. Don't like this at all. The color pulls very, very orange on me, and I have the shade Light. The brow pencil, it still pulls warm, but not as warm, and this is also the shade Light. I'm just gonna use this to fill in any little gaps. I want to keep my brows quite natural and kind of undone looking, so that way it doesn't get too kind of heavy in the brow area, if that makes sense. Is when I try to use the pencil, the brow pencil over the brow wax, it gets really gummy. So here's the brow pencil. It's not bad, it just pulls too warm for my taste, so I'm not a fan of these and I don't suggest them. And I also don't like the lip, so I'm going to remove the lip. So while I try to make up my mind what I'm gonna use on my lips, I'm gonna go in with another new product, well, new to me product. This is the Guerlain Meteorites Compact. I'm gonna use this as my buffing powder, and I'm gonna use an IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores powder brush number 701. So I'm going to use this as my buffing powder, so I like to stipple over my skin, and then after I stipple, I'll go through and buff. That's pretty. That kind of just gave everything a nice natural matte finish. Don't know if it made too much of a difference as far as tone correction or brightening, but it gave a really, really soft matte finish that I think is really pretty. I'm gonna go back in with that fluffy blending side of that little Givenchy applicator, and I'm gonna pick up that soft kind of white color in the bottom center. Let me use this to go right under my brow bone. Just give it a little bit of a highlight, and that will also help to soften up any edges under the brows. Go back to my Refy number 27. Balance out my angles. Now I have a deluxe sample size of the Givenchy Volume Disturbia mascara, so I'm gonna try this out. Cute little packaging. So the mascara is nice. It does give a little bit of volume definition. It does give you a little bit of a clumpiness to it, but that's something I don't mind when going for like a smokier eye like this, because it almost kind of plays into the depth at the base of the lashes for the smoky effect, and it has a little kind of like plastic applicator, which is is nice. I'm undecided on what to use for lips, so I just grabbed the Charlotte Tilbury Collagen Lip Bath in the shade Pillow Top. Here is our final look. So with this look, I kind of wanted to keep everything kind of fresh and modern. That way it didn't look too heavy or dated. So with this eye look, I like it because it kind of keeps everything, like we have our depth and drama, but everything else still has a relative kind of no makeup-esque felt despite us having lots of product on. So that's kind of what I like. I like to keep one focal point and let everything else kind of fade into it. Now I do feel like the slip tint is oxidizing because now I've gotten way darker than my neck. So be mindful of oxidation, but if you've tried any of these products, let me know your thoughts, opinions in the comment box down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, y'all.